Thank you, Amr. So I'll be talking about this women's tournament called Girls in the Field. Okay. So I start with this ad for a credit card because the day I came to this conference, I had something to do at a bank, and then I saw this credit card which is called She, and it was pink. And on it said, there is special discounts for hairdressers, cosmetics, and something else, like high fashion or something. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking to the person behind the counter, and I said, why did you feel like you had to come up with such a credit card? Women already had so many cards. And he said, no, you don't get it. It's you will get everything, and on top of it, you'll get discounts. So we couldn't reach an agreement. And then I'm like, no, that doesn't. So, and then I said, it's pink and everything. So it went on. And then I said, I have to go now, because you see, I'm flying out to this conference tomorrow. And he asked, what's the conference on? I said, I'll be talking about football. He's like, you, football? You'll be talking about football? And then there was all this conversation again, you're not interested in cosmetics, but you'll all talk about football. So it went on and on until I had to leave. So I thought it was an incident I have to share with you. So you get an idea of the context where these women try to play football in Turkey. So I have some numbers here. You're probably familiar with them, but women's participation in the workforce is still very, very low in Turkey. About one out of every 3 women are in the workforce. In the parliament, we have very few women, and so the gendered ideas of femininity and masculinity are still very, very prominent. So women are still thought to be by most people, including women themselves, being frail. So I run long distance, I run marathons, and there, we were just chatting with Mu, it was only 100 Turkish women completed the Istanbul Marathon last year. And so when I told my American friends, I came in 60th, and they thought I did a 2.5-hour marathon. I'm no, out of 100 women. So this is the scene, right? And when you come to football, when you think about the large football crowd, including players, media, people who teach about it, talk about it, about 20% are women. And we have now 120 women's football teams, and for every 100 football male players, there is 1 woman. So again, very, very small number. So in this context, so you get a sense of it. We can talk about it more if you like in the discussion. So this tournament started by a woman called Melis Abacıoğlu. Melis is a social entrepreneur and a businesswoman, so she does other work with sports. She advises companies on well-being. So she has 2 other for-profit businesses. So this is the first private tournament. So we have a women's football league, but this is a private tournament. And so this is the 6th year, and already 3,000 women participated. And all the incomes, so incomes of the tournaments, when you buy tickets, all of it is donated to NGOs in Turkey. So Açev is one of them. Açev is a mother-daughter, mother-children foundation. They do work with women who don't know how to read and write or who have access to technology. And they also do work, although in its name it's mother and children, they also work with fathers. So most of the incomes goes to Açev. And this is what it literally says, this is how Melis puts it, what does this tournament do? It empowers women through team sports in a field where gender roles are reversed. So this is what she says when we interviewed her, and when in her conferences, when she talks to the press, she says I came up with this idea because one day she was feeling upset, she was feeling down, and then a few friends called her and said, let's go out and play football. And she went there and she felt empowered. That's how she tells the story. And then she said okay, it's girls, let's play football and let's feel empowered. So that was the starting point for her. And then I checked their LinkedIn page just before I came here, and very similar. It says like combining fun, teamwork, and a healthy level of sports rivalry. So that healthy level, we'll come back to that. Please remember that. Because here it may not be clear, like what is a healthy level of rivalry. Okay, so they have two divides. One is like a corporate team. So if you're a corporation, so if you could be Microsoft, you could be Perfetti, like any other company, and you can decide to put together a team. You can advertise it, and then women come. It's women only. So then you can sign up. You pay to sign up for the tournament. Or they have another divide called come with your team, like put together a team and come play with us. So these are mostly people who used to play football when they were younger and for some reason had to quit. And they still play during the week, so they put together teams. So 6+1 plus substitutes, no men are allowed to play, but we found out like all the trainers were men, so I'll come to that. You're not allowed to play if you're a licensed player, but if you used to be a licensed player way back, you're okay. No offside. This is highly significant because I come from a country where we have so many jokes about women and the offside rule. So in one of the, we have like Ekşi Sözlük, it's like Wikipedia type crowd-sourced like website. There under the entry, woman who knows the offside rule, there were like hundreds and hundreds of entries, like how you describe the offside rule to a woman, all these like sexist jokes. So it's highly crucial for us that there was no offside is like, okay, women don't get it, so we won't put it there. No offside rules, no offside. And games last 30 minutes, so 2 halves of 15 minutes with a 10-minute break. And the field is like small, so you can 50 to 35 meters. So that's Melis giving an interview, like the founder. So Yağmur and I, we've known each other for a long time because there are not many people who work on football in Istanbul. So we met, someone introduced us, oh, you guys both work on the same topic, why don't you meet? So years ago, and we've been like following each other's research, but this is the first research we did together. So we did interviews with 5 teams on both divides, and then we talked to 5 trainers. They were all men. 1 referee who was a woman. Initially, they had male and female referees, but then they switched to only woman referees, so I'll come to that. And 2 of the staff, so 1 is a founding member. But we also played, so you can see pictures of us, like me not being able to kick the ball. I mean, I was thinking like I'm a good runner, so I'll probably play well, and I know the rules well, but I was awful. So, but we were able to play for a few games, so we had a sense of like the tournament. So for 2 years I played, Yağmur played for 1 year. She was expecting last year, so she's not in the pictures from last year. So we were able to like note all the conversations which took place during the games, in the changing rooms, and what like women talk about when they were not playing and watching others play. So we took a lot of notes. So those consider our field notes. And then we were curious, like, so you get an idea of the setting, which is Turkey, and football is still a highly male-dominated area. So we were trying to understand, like, how do these women, because most of them, about 95%, according to their statistics, never played football before, like never even kicked a ball in their lives. So they come, they play football, but football is still considered a masculine, a male sport. So how do they negotiate gender identity, gender roles, and as women who play football? Because you see, like, some of them practice, some of them just put their shoes on and go to the field. They're like, how does that feel? What do they do with it? And then how inclusive is this tournament? Because, you know, in the publications and the like press reports and everything, they say, okay, like anyone can come. Like, is it actually true? Is it inclusive? Is any group marginalized? So, okay, it seemed inclusive, but was it? So we wanted to understand that. And agency and empowerment, how does it work? Because The founders say it empowers women. Does it empower women, and how? So we wanted to understand those things. So when it comes to inclusion, so I'll be giving some quotes, like these are direct quotes from the players. So those which come from the corporate teams, you'll see in green. From the other teams, you'll see in blue. So the blue ones are like, let's put together a team and go. Like usually those people have played football before, at least a few of them. And the others are corporate teams, when either they came because they thought it's good social responsibility, we're like putting together a women's football team, or they wanted to list this among their well-being projects. Everyone had a different idea, but those are the codes. So women joined the tournament and stayed because they did feel like they were getting strong. But the interesting thing was, I'm not going to read the quotes, but you can have a look at them. So they all wanted approval, and they stayed because they wanted approval. So it was like underlined several times, like the more we played, we started to play better. And, first, the men in the company didn't come watch our games. They ridiculed us, but then they saw we're playing okay, or we started winning. So they started coming, and this approval really, helped them stay in the tournament. Many mentioned their spouses, brothers, I improved so much, now I can play with my brother, or my husband comes to my games. So it was like, they stayed, but they really wanted the approval from their spouses. So this is something we really wanted to understand, like how were they positioning themselves, when their pictures were taken, because we noticed, like when there was a camera and there were like team pictures being taken, right? So they all did the classic, like some of them go up front and kneel and just the classic football pose. So we asked them, like, how did it feel? Like, why did you do this? So they said, yeah, this is what we've been exposed to, and this is the right thing to do in football. So they were imitating them. But also, all their role models were men, as you can imagine, and Messi came up many times. So, for example, this woman we talked to from the Perfetti team, she said, when you put on your jersey, when you start warming up, you feel like Messi. Like, who is Messi when compared to us? She had like this idea of like, playing like Messi. It was. So they were trying to be included in the game. And they thought like the strategy would be through like masculinization, like performing some kind of masculinity would help them be included in the game and included in the world of football. But interestingly, they felt they were trying hard to be included, but almost in every conversation, these like sexist tropes about like men being natural players came about. So one of them, it was interesting because she had played for many years, and she kept saying, just give it. She was almost trying to prove to us, like Yağmur and I were there, we were doing this interview, and she almost tried to prove to us, like, let's give the ball to like girls and boys and let's see what happens. And we were trying to tell her, look, like men have been playing football, like, in Turkey, I know if it's the same, elsewhere where football is popular, but you would press a cola can and you would even kick that as a kid. So it's like anything you can play, like a bottle cap, anything you can find, you hit. And so we were trying to explain that, like, do you think maybe these men are well rehearsed and that's why they can kick the ball? She's like, no, it's in their genes. Like, it's in their genes. They play football well. Like, because she says, I have girls and boys play for me and the girls suck. So she was trying to justify it through some like essentialist idea. And we were not able to convince her. We gave the example of the US. I'm like, US girls play football a lot. She's like, no, not really. That doesn't say anything. We said, you play well. She's like, my uncle played. Maybe it's in my genes. No, it's not in the genes. She was all confused. But these conversations, she was like so convinced men had this natural talent. And many of them like repeatedly said, if we played next to men, like we would lose. They have this, either it was about muscles, like some kind of idea like that they have dancer muscles, high levels of testosterone. So these may come up in your talk probably. So they were trying to just, not exactly knowing what they were talking about, but they were mentioning this. And then speaking of inclusion, we said, how about like, football becomes a different game, or like the tournament becomes more inclusive and we play together. Like, what do you think about that? And most of them just didn't like the idea at all. Like the first guy he's a trainer. So he was like, usually the trainers talked about these women as like my woman, our woman, I trained them, so proud. And then he was like, if you throw them, if I were to throw my girls, like it almost sounded like he was talking about some wild beasts, like these male players, and that would be like, bloodshed. And he was like, that's not going to happen. And then one of them was an American player. Like she played football for many years in the US. And she said, like, when I came to Turkey, mom wouldn't play with me. Like, she had such a difficult time, like, convincing them, look, I can play with you, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to be hurt. This idea that women are frail and you could actually hurt them was, like, very, very dominant in both the players and also the trainers who were men. So this was the team, like we heard most of the gossip about, like, so when we were in the changing rooms or when we were watching the games, so many women would just like be, and they would do it like something, like, it was almost like a very acceptable behavior, like they would just, say, look, I think those are men. They allowed some men in the tournament. So these women who wanted to be included in the game of football, who thought it was a good thing, also really didn't want to be like these women. They were so insistent in excluding them and trying to, oh my God, I have 5 minutes, say like, we're not one of them, because they're too muscular and they're probably lesbian. So it was almost like they were trying to explain to us, we're not like them, right? Like, so we're not. So they're, so it was always them, us, and them talk, like very, very discriminatory and insistently othering them. And then, like, so first we noticed some kind of like performance of masculinity, but then they told about these extreme performance of femininity, things like, we put on makeup, like we put on high heels, so we're just there, we play football, but we're women, right? Like, and a woman is always a woman, kind of like, these extreme performances of like, what I would call like hyper-femininity almost. But interestingly, in the organizers' terms, this was very similar. They said things like, okay, the first year, so-and-so team, they were great because they put on wigs, they put on high heels, they were having fun, and then they got a trainer, they trained really, really hard, and then they became like undesirable because they were like really wanting to win, they became competitive, which in their mind was not feminine enough and not actually like what they wanted in the tournament. And interestingly, they also said, ergo, they couldn't benefit from empowerment, which we want. So in their minds, like fun, femininity, and empowerment actually didn't go together. So there were only a couple of people who said, like, just inviting people to come and play in a football won't help. Like, it was almost like many women were apologetic about playing football. They said, I do it for social responsibility, I come here for fun, I come here to put on high heels just to, show off, like it's a show. Some even called it carnival, a festival. It was almost like we don't play football, right? Like we're here, but not to play football. So if the tournament, like we were thinking, wants to be more inclusive, it has to be like proactive and just like in their visuals, in everything they do, like they have to do something. Yes, it's wonderful, like putting together a tournament, but it was excluding many women. The people in the tournament were excluding other women, but the discourse of the tournament itself was not very inclusive either. And they were criticized by one of the players for using the term girls instead of women, like why they can't even call us women. So that was also like brought up by one of the players. So I'll stop here, but I have this like this sign. They have to come up with a sign, right? And the signs are in a competition. So some of the signs, like I'm not going to talk about them, but some of them really, recreated the stereotypes about women. So one of them, for example, said, "I'm not going to eat a goal." Like in Turkish, we would say just, when you score a goal, the other team eats it. So because I'm on a diet, kind of like reproducing all these stereotypes about women. But this one won the competition that year. So is the name Tsubasa familiar to you all? Like Tsubasa, the Japanese manga? We used to watch it when I was a kid. And so these women are saying, we're Tsubasa's soldiers, like he's our guy. We follow his lead. So this sign won the best sign in the tournament. So I'll leave it there for the discussion. Thank you so much for listening.